Exodus to Deuteronomy. Introduction. Resuming the story of the Israelites from Genesis, the books of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy follow the liberation of the Israelites from slavery in Egypt under the guidance of Moses, their receipt of the Ten Commandments and other laws, and their journey to the Promised Land. The central message is one of deliverance through God's covenant with Moses, a continuation of the divine promise begun in Genesis and picked up through the Bible. In Christianity, Jesus is seen as a second Moses who offers salvation from death. The Bible as history. Scholars have long attempted to link events in Exodus to historical sources in order to verify and date the Israelites' flight from Egypt. No archaeological evidence has so far been found, and there is no historical record. The Bible does not identify the Pharaoh at the time of the Exodus. This lack of corroboration has led to a hunt for circumstantial evidence, such as the widespread migrations that are known to have occurred in the eastern Mediterranean during the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age in around 1200 BC, a period when trade routes changed and civilizations collapsed. Some scholars link the Israelites with the Hyksos, Semitic peoples who were parts of Egypt in the 1600s BC but were driven by Thutmose III in the 1400s. The first-century historian Josephus Flavius, keen to stress the antiquity of the Jews, supported this idea. Other theories draw on the Amarna letters, correspondence on date tablets sent by Pharaoh Akhenaten, 1350s to 1330s BC, and Amarna, Upper Egypt, to the rest of the ancient Near East. They point to mentions of a group of bandits called Hypedo or Hybedo, similar to Hebrew, that are to be driven from the land. In 1939, Sigmund Freud, in his book Moses and Monotheism, proposed that Moses was a priest of Akhenaten's god who introduced monotheism to Egypt. Despite this, attempts to link the book of Exodus to historical events are proof futile. Monotheism is all. Central to the book of Exodus is the doctrine of monotheism developed from the book of Genesis. However, the first of the Ten Commandments given to Moses on Mount Sinai, "You shall have no other gods before me," is ambiguous. Early biblical scholars, convinced that monotheism was not present from the start of the Bible but developed over time, believe that this suggested henotheism, effectively a middle state between polytheism and monotheism, which one god is paramount among multiple gods. However, the text of the book of Deuteronomy, the second law which follows Exodus, is clear. Not only does it proclaim that there is only one deity, but it establishes a creed, the Shema, to reinforce the idea, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 4, a daily declaration of belief. Deuteronomy is a retelling of the law which sets out to reestablish the Mosaic covenant. According to Jewish tradition, the book of Deuteronomy was found in a dusty corner of the temple in the 7th century BC. Building a religion. Whenever the Israelites ignored God's laws, disaster ensues. When they worship a false god in the form of a golden calf, soon after receiving the Ten Commandments, they are condemned to wander aimlessly through the desert for 40 years. During this time, they formalize their religion, establishing its structure and liturgy. The tabernacle, built according to God's instructions, is a movable version of the temple that will later be built by Solomon in Jerusalem, and Moses' brother Aaron founds a hereditary priesthood through his bloodline, the Levites. The text of the Pentateuch, or Torah, ends with Moses dying on the threshold of the promised land of Canaan. After his death, the Israelites, led by Joshua, Moses' appointed successor, are ready to retake the promised land to them by God from the polytheistic Canaanites. As religious scripture, the Torah is significant to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and is highly influential on Western culture. For Jews, the Torah is the most important of the biblical texts because it establishes God's relationship with his chosen people, and while for Christians, Moses foreshadows the coming Messiah. In the Quran, the Torah is referred to as Al-Kitab, and Moses, Musa, is mentioned more times than any other prophet.